struggling hard with research work. It's not easy to get him on the phone. So, next to Brother Rafik.
Okay. So we're talking about this character-based model of leadership that is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and that in fact is related or emphasizes ethics. In that one verse, so when you look at the Quran, there are only two places that the word khuluq is mentioned. And this is one of them, right? And it's related, as I said, specifically to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we're developing this model now. Now, remember before I was talking about Aristotle and I was talking about character. Now, when we look at Islam and we look at the Quran specifically, Allah draws a distinction. So we talk about competence. So what kind of competence should people have? When we talk about competence in the Quran, for example, in Surah Yusuf, Surah 12, verse 22, Allah is saying, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah is saying, when he, Musa, alayhi salam, reached full age and was firmly established in life, we bestowed on him both wisdom and knowledge. Thus do we reward those who do good. So Allah in the Quran itself draws a distinction between hikmah and ilm. Ilm is knowledge. Hikmah is wisdom, practical knowledge that can be put into practice, practical knowledge, right? So whereas competence relates more to ilm, the Islamic perspective of leadership recognizes the importance of both. You can have a ton of knowledge, but you don't know how to use it, or you use it in the wrong way. I really liked those ayah that were recited at the beginning, because he had knowledge that Allah had given him, and he put it to practical use. We're talking about Dhul-Qarnayn, Surah Al-Kahf, right? So when we talk about leadership and we talk about ourselves, sometimes you have people who study very esoteric fields. And I always ask myself, so what? How is that going to advance humanity? Right? How is that going to advance, to make the faith of Muslims better? It's a good question. And we see that again. So in Surah Yusuf, in verse 12, verse 155. Now, notice Allah is talking about competence. In another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said something on these lines. I'm paraphrasing there. He said, whoever seeks a position of power in effect, without asking Allah's guidance or permission, that person will not be guided. But whoever is appointed, Allah will guide him to the discharge of his responsibility. So people have said, well, you should run for political office. That's not true. If you look at Surah Yusuf, Surah 12, verse 55, you will see that Yusuf alayhi salam himself, a prophet, asks for to be appointed as the overseer over the granaries of Egypt. And in the Quran, in this surah, he's saying, put me in charge of the treasures of the land, for I am trustworthy and competent. Right? And Allah later on repeats that indeed he was trustworthy and competent. So the point here, a couple of things that's happening that's important for us with respect to leadership and followership. A position becomes open for you at work. You feel you're truly competent. And you have the right niyyah. That's what the difference is. You are not seeking a position to advance yourself, to be able to have this big title up to your name. You're seeking it because you intensely want to do good. Many scholars on this, commenting on this verse, have said that's okay. All goes back. Remember that in Islam, deeds are judged by their intention, right? So in effect, that's exactly what's happening. So when you choose people, choose competent people. If you're competent, and there's a position open and you, by the grace of Allah, you're truly qualified, as long as your niyyah is clear, by all means, apply for it. Run for office. You guys should run for office. You should run for office in every place you can. Right now, in the United States, we have 2 Muslim women who are part of Congress. And the Zionist lobby just loves it. Because now there actually have people who can speak back to them. Anyway, so remember this. So this notion of practical wisdom, practical knowledge is important in Islam. Moving on, so this hadith is transmitted by Al-Hakim and cited in this famous book by Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Siyasat Sharia, and it's a long title. So when we look at Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam now, in terms of his leadership characteristics, one of course is honesty and integrity, right? So we've talked about that already. Secondly, this emphasis on ethics. Secondly, we talked about competence. And we talked about how in appointing people, he did not appoint people that were not competent. Now, look at Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam realized when it came to matters of deen, he had a direct line to Allah through Jibreel. But in matters that were not related to deen, he always sought shura. And there was never a time that he sought shura that he did not follow the shura, even when he had misgivings about it. So, example. If you think about, it's a cold morning, and the Muslim army of about 300 people have walked into the valley of Badr. And they got there before the mushrikeen did. And now Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is arraying the army. And this companion, by the name of Al-Hubab ibn al-Mundhir, comes to him and says, "O Prophet, is this from you or is this from Allah? This way you arrange the troops." And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "This is from you." Then he advises him to move the army to in effect cut off water from the advancing Quraysh, so they wouldn't have water when they got there. So dry up the wells closest to them and put the wells that they were going to use behind them. And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam follows his advice. At the Battle of the Ditch, Salman al-Farsi comes to him and said, in the country I came from, he was from Persia, when we faced, because the Quraysh came in huge numbers at the Battle of the Ditch, when we face huge numbers like that, we dig a ditch. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam follows the advice. At Uhud, when the young people said, no, we don't want, they basically were talking, and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wanted to stay within the walls. And the younger people said, no, let's go outside. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam put his armor, and then they changed their mind. But one, and as he says, not electrically, no, once a prophet puts his armor on, he's not going to take it out, right? But the point is, when they said, we want to go outside, he had a sense, Allah gave him a sense of what was going to happen. If you look at the way he's speaking, he says, maybe this day you will prevail, right? He still followed the others, right? So, the point is that what I'm making, the point I'm trying to make is that in areas where Muhammad ﷺ had knowledge directly from Allah, that was it. But in areas that he was not familiar with, he, the Prophet of Allah, sought Shura and followed Shura. Competence, right? He knew where his areas of competence is. So in leadership theory, we talk about that as a contingency approach to leadership. That the leader is most effective when his or her characteristics match the characteristics of the situation and the characteristics of his followers. Muhammad ﷺ understood that intensely. He never put himself in a position where he had not been guided by Allah or when he had not gotten shura, especially if he had not gotten wahi with respect to that particular situation. Okay? So, we talked about being honest, talked about being competent. Thank you for asking this question about forward-looking. I already answered that one, right? Level 5 leadership. Now, there's a famous book published by Jim Collins from Stanford called From Good to Great. He went and looked at the best and best companies, the best of the best companies in America. And those are the companies that have outperformed the S&P 500 like 30 years in a row. They're just outstanding performers. And then he went and looked at their leaders. He identified only about 11 companies that do that. Then he went and looked at their leaders. And he saw the leaders were characterized by what he calls level 5 leadership. By the way, that's a great book for you to read. If you're in business, even if you're not, that's a great book about leadership to read. From good to great. It's not enough to be good, you want to be great. So, what happened was, he saw that those leaders of those best of the best companies, they are characterized by what he calls level 5 leadership. Level 5 leaders are those that have a tremendous iron will. They do not budge. They do not give up. They do not flinch. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many circumstances where he could have given up. We'll talk about that in a minute. Right? He could have chosen the easy way out. He didn't. One example, of course, that all of you know is Taif. When he was pelted with, how many of you have been pelted with rocks until you bled? Anybody here? No? Not you? All right. You wouldn't have a Yukutros, no? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was pelted with rocks. All right? Until his shoes filled up with blood. And then, if you remember, as he's sitting in that garden, the angels come to him. And they offer him what? This is the note. What do they offer him? If you want, anybody been to Taif in Saudi Arabia? Anybody raise your hand? You have. Lots of rocks there. Rocks everywhere. Right? Those kids throwing rocks at him, they didn't have to look, right? I have been there too, right? So he's sitting there, it's close to those mountains, and the angel offers to basically crumble those mountains under Taif. And what does Muhammad say? No, perhaps their progeny will become Muslims. He was sent to be as a mercy to mankind, not to destroy people. He never forgot his mission, even when he had just been Non, de n'abonner tac ou trop, c'est ce qu'a dit enseigner et se souiller finalement les discours. What me dire là? Yes? Go back to English, okay? But the point is, he did not forget his mission. And you know, did you go to the masjid in Taif? Exactly. You go on Jum'ah? Was the masjid full?
Well,
See, when I went on the Jum'ah, it was packed. And I looked around, and all I could think was, among these people are the descendants of the people who threw rocks at our Prophet. Strength of character. Comment me dire là? Et la foi, quelque chose ne m'a pas. Nothing is working, right? You apply for a job, you don't get it. You think you're going to be the next laureate, you don't get it, right? You want to get a promotion, you don't get it, right? Dis-moi qui moins compétent que vous, mais c'est là où, right? Vous connaissez ma métier, right? But at the end of the day, if Allah wants to have something, nobody can stop it. Nobody can stop it. All right? So, this is something important. Characteristics of Muhammad, strength of character. And here it is, Abu Talib. They came to bribe him. And he says, and Abu Talib, is bringing his uncle, bring the offer from the Quraysh to him. He says, oh uncle, by God I swear, even if they were to put the sun in my right hand and the moon in the left hand, that I have drawn this cause, I would not do so until God has vindicated or caused me to perish in the process. Ou les pouvoirs nous donnent le pouvoir, ou les richesses nous donnent les richesses. But you refuse to do it. Okay? That's what they're talking about. Let's talk about Salahuddin Ayyubi. Because people sometimes tell me, why do you always use examples and tell the Prophet? Well, let's talk about somebody else after. Salahuddin Ayyubi. No, I heard the IIED people say, we don't have enough people, things. We can't involve young people, right? This has been happening for a long time. Look at Salahuddin Ayyubi. We hope in Allah Most High to only pray. Who leads the hearts of the Muslims to calm what torments them and ruins their property? Where is the sense of honor of the Muslims? This is Salahuddin Ayyubi, the liberator of Jerusalem. C'est comme les musulmans. You see me là. Okay? The pride of the believers, the zeal of the faithful, we shall never cease to be amazed at how the believers for their part have shown trust, because the Muslims have been lacking in zeal. Not one of them has responded to the call. Does that sound familiar? Zaid? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Right? Not one intervenes to straighten what is distorted, but observe how far the Franks have gone. You could replace Franks, by Zionists, Chinese against Uyghurs, what unity they have achieved, what aims they pursue, what help they have given, what sums of money they have borrowed and spent. In spite of all of that, by the grace of Allah, He liberated Jerusalem. So don't get discouraged. Muhammad didn't get discouraged after Taif. Didn't get discouraged after Uhud. Salahuddin Ayyubi didn't get discouraged before he liberated Jerusalem. We Muslims have no right to be discouraged. Okay? I know it's hard. There are people out there trying their hardest to make you feel little. These people were created by the same person that created you. Okay? It's a test of the genuineness of your faith. Okay. So we talked about all of that. And humility and understanding. The other part about level 5 leadership, those tremendous leaders, is that they are humble. They don't seek power. So if you look at Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in terms of his model of leadership, you will see that he was extremely humble. So one example I like to use is that of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is now the Khalif. On the occasion of his first khutbah, what does he say? He stands on the minbar and he says, even though I am not the best of you, I have been given the responsibility of ruling you. I am only human, so make allowance for me. Humility. Humility. Right? Umar radiallahu anhu is walking to get the keys from, to get the keys of Jerusalem. And he and his servant, they have only one animal that they can ride on. They are taking turns. You know Umar radiallahu anhu, right? He had one though. So every one of us, we can go home and look at how many pants, shirts, dresses, socks we have, right? And it had, people counted 13 holes, patched with things that didn't match, right? So it's coming, and in fact it's all muddy. And they're in sight of Jerusalem. And his servant says, you know, you're the Khalif of Islam, it's my turn, but it's better, at least you ride the animal. And Omar said, no. Listen to what Omar said. Omar said, the honor of being a Muslim is adequate for both of us. L'honneur d'être un musulman lui suffit, translated for me, lui suffisant pour les deux, right, is enough for both of us. L'honneur d'être musulman. Right? Parce que tout le monde pense ça, il y a une hidayah là. Allah qui besoin de ça. Comment me dire là? Ou quand un monde qui est non-musulman, il est né dans une famille musulmane, mais il paye dans ça là-dedans. Who connaît ça? Right? You know what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm talking about. Humility. Umar radiallahu anhu used to sleep on the steps of buildings. He had no bodyguard. He had, and si tu veux puis aller la police va dire hier, moi je keep having great conflict on the there, right? They mean, come, you want to back his affair. He had no bodyguard. He was Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was the leader of the Muslims. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the same way. So, I like this. So this was Umar. What about Ali radiallahu anhu? Ali radiallahu anhu wrote a very famous letter, which you should all read. It's like how to be a great leader. To Malik al-Ashtar al-Nuhay, before he became governor of Egypt. So he's sending him off, and he's giving him this letter. He says, beware not to develop the trait of self-admiration and self-appreciation. Do not get vain about the good points you find in your character or the good deeds you've done. Do not let flattery or compliments make you conceited. Nous connaissons, when we look at research in leadership, one of the ways followers are toxic is they flatter the leader. You can do no wrong. When un timon ici, je t'embrasse la main pareille. Vous connaissez pas. Mais un timon. Vous connaissez. Ok. Alors, j'ai fait attention, non? Je t'embrasse la main molana là, je t'embrasse la main. C'est mon petit timon qui l'a besoin. Right? What are you trying to do? Listen, man, he goes to the bathroom the same way you do. Right? Anyway, so we've talked about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as an ethical leader, and there's some here, I'm not going to go into all of that. So now let's go back to transformational leadership. So you remember at the very beginning, I drew a distinction between transactional approach to leadership and transformational approach to leadership. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tiene la management du travail politique. Il dit payeur est en train de finir ce travail. So he was a transactional leader. He was also a transformational leader. Remember what I said, transformational leader, non seulement do they look at the relation between you and the follower as, you work for me, I pay you, or I work for you, you pay me. But he took time to develop the companions around him. And the Quran talks about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being transformational. So we will see that in a minute. So, a transformational leader is not a transactional leader. He helps about bringing positive changes. They help to move group members beyond their self-interest for the group, good of the group, organization, society. They're more effective in the long term. So, in the field of leadership, right now, if you look at the major theories, transactional leadership, contingency approach leadership I just mentioned, transformational leadership, right? Where does Muhammad fit in this? Allah says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ. You, talking to us, this was revealed after the battle of Ahzab, right? You have indeed, in the apostle of Allah, a beautiful pattern of conduct. Actually, this is wrong, the translation. Uswatun Hasana. This is the superlative in Arabic. Right? The most. Right? The most. Right? For anyone whose hope is in Allah and the final day and who engages much in the praise of Allah. Right? وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Much. They do dhikr, much. Right? Dhikr of Allah, much. So, this is Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah 33, verse 21. So Allah is telling us, in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have, by the grace of Allah, the role model. The perfect role model. Right? And we could go back to Ali radiallahu anhu. Ali radiallahu anhu says, try to realize that a leader can create goodwill in the minds of his subjects. He can make them, he can transform them. La façon qu'un leader comporte lui-même. Et tant qu'on get servant followers, je copie sa leader. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? When they can make them faithful and sincere only when he's kind and considerate, when he reduces their troubles and difficulties, when he does not oppress or tyrannize them, and when he never asks for things beyond their capacity. And the end of it, Malik, you must never forget that if you're a ruler over them, because I'm appointed you, in effect, to rule over Egypt, the Khalif is a ruler over you, and Allah is the supreme Lord over the Khalif. You remember that. No matter what position you're in, Simo, top manager, there's always somebody above me, right? That I'm ultimately accountable to. So let's look now, we're starting to develop this, the leadership model of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Looking at each of them in a minute. First, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam raised awareness. He helped people look beyond their self-interest. He stimulated them intellectually. He showed consideration to each one of them. And he inspired and motivated. Okay? So let's look at the first one, raising awareness. This is a beautiful saying from Jafar ibn Abi Talib, speaking to the natives of Abyssinia when he asked them, because the Quraysh had sent their envoy because they didn't want the Muslims to be in their business. And they were saying all kinds of stuff. So the niggas asked him, you tell me about it. Right? This is his answer. He commanded us to speak the truth, to honor our promises, to be kind to our relations, to be helpful to our neighbors, to cease all forbidden acts, to abstain from bloodshed, to avoid obscenities and false witness, and not to appropriate an opponent's property, nor slander chaste. That summarizes a lot the essence of Islam, right? The attributes of what a Muslim, you're talking about truth, keeping your promises, kindness, being helpful. You know, don't commit murder, don't engage in zina and other things like that. Control your mouth, right? Don't steal from an orphan, and don't say bad things. Don't speak bad about women or children. All right. So raising awareness. The second one, helping people to look beyond their self-interest. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam challenged individual and international egoism and relativism, asabiyya. When Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received wahi, if you look at the history of Islam, of Arabia, before Islam, it was horrible. They would fight over nothing. They would fight for years and years. They were running around naked around the Kaaba. They would worship idols made out of cheese and wood. Just imagine you take cheese from your fridge, you carve it into a little person, and you start worshiping. Right? Anybody else do that? Okay. Right? And emphasize the universal brotherhood of mankind. Right? If you look at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look like the United Nations. You had Bilal. You had Salman al-Farsi. You had the Roman guy. I'm trying to remember his name. But there it was like a whole United Nations around it. And so universal brotherhood of mankind. None of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. Right? This idea that, of intense brotherhood that was at the center of the character of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let me see if I'm forgetting anything right now. I think I'm doing good so far, at least in not forgetting anything. Okay. How did he inspire, how did he stimulate people intellectually, right? The Quran, the first ayah, Iqra. What does Iqra mean? Read. Why would Jibreel alayhi salam tell somebody who was unlettered, he couldn't read, to read? Many commentators have said, looking at that verse, that this verse coming from Allah at a time when the messenger himself was unlettered and very little was available to read, was more directed to us, that we, the believers, should use our intellectual and spiritual faculties to gain knowledge, to reflect about God's signs throughout the universe, because it's through reflection, through study, that in fact one will better the lot of the Muslims. We also strengthen our own. Right? Iqra. So he who issues forth in search of knowledge is busy in the cause of God till he returns from his quest. And we've already talked about this notion of the difference between ilm and iqra. The problem, before I go there, is, hold on a second. I'm going to turn off my screen for a second. Any questions so far? Just for a couple of minutes. Raise your hand and speak loud, loud, loud.
Yeah. So far as self-appreciation is concerned, you see, a believer is supposed at the end of the day
Right.
to have the introspection of what he has been doing during the day, the work in the every day. And now while he is analyzing the good work, he has a feeling of self-appreciation to do better. So in this case, it's recommended.
It depends on the niyyah again. Right?
Yes.
If I am appreciated, doing self-appreciation, I'm like, hey Rafik, you know, and then you will come salah, you will like last night because I'm good name now. Okay, more can I say? May I guess come to see the family. But you know what I'm talking about. It all depends on niyyah. I accomplished a lot, peace of that part is, I accomplished a lot thanks to Allah, not by myself. You understand? That would be much better. Umar radiallahu anhu used to say, whoever criticizes me has given me a treasure. Right? Right? We started fighting. Right? Before he became a Muslim, Omar was on his way to killing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you remember. Right? After he became a Muslim, he became a totally different person. Right? So, the idea always is, in his case, you remember? Right? So, Bapak ni masjid tu tadi. Ki masjid tu tadi. Ki masjid tu tadi. Juma. Ya? Ki masjid. Ya? Bukan masjid? Okay. Ki masjid. Ki masjid wali. Ya. Sofia masjid. En een grand bini Bapak ni len. Whatever. Zully lah. Yeah, but very knowledgeable, very well respected and everything. Because they don't must. Right? They fait une grande causerie. Very much then en pile. Right? Là, une madame parlait hier. Des solamnités. Molana. Si je laisse madame Asna m'a dit, normalement, qu'ils ont mis madame dans le bâtiment. Right? Pourquoi les gens peuvent dire là? Penan microphone non, alors bâtiment là c'est là. Ok? Mais disons elle m'a dit que Madame Carras est pas derrière. Elle m'a dit, Molana, on fait une faute là. Qui peut dire ça Madame là ou pas? Pourquoi les gens dire où là? Je me dis, oh, pas étonné. Pas là. Omar radiallahu anhu. And the lady at the back. You notice the ladies at the back? This Umar radiallahu anhu, n'est pas mettre l'idée à une muraille, n'est pas mettre dans le bâtiment. Okay? This is Islam. The lady at the back raises her hand, and what does she say? You should know that. She corrects him on the matter of dowry. And Omar says, the lady is right and Omar is wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is how, nous prenons l'islam, nous écrasons avec toutes sortes de qualités, distorsions. Nous mettons madame là, c'est pas comme ça, et puis nous expliquons respecte-les pour enseigner aux enfants. Vous n'êtes pas capable de vivre d'autres papiers. Hier, on a la masjid, qui m'a dit, moi, on a prié dans ma salle. Moi, madame, dans le bâtiment, ben à micro, ben à rien. Les pièces, on n'a pas les mêmes. And I'm going like, really? In America, we don't do that. In America, we have the masjid. The sisters can pray at the back, or if they want, they can pray in a separate room. There's a camera, there's, and l'écran, the cave, tout l'imam. Their choice. Don't make the Prophet ﷺ said, don't make this religion hard. Pas faire sa religion là difficile. Ok? Pas faire sa religion là difficile. In the battle of Uhud, mon cause créole là, dans la bataille de Uhud, quand Khalid fin faire sa set autour colline Uhud là, où il y a un Quraysh pratiquement se fait galoper, parce qu'au commencement, le Quraysh se fait perdre. Donc en fait, Khalid il observe les musulmans, les archers, right, les acolytes là, d'un abandon de position. En fait, c'est que le acolyte là, pour protéger their rear. Khalid noticed it, il fait le tour, il coince un musulman, entre ce cavalerie, et là, le Quraysh est tourné, et là, se fait démolir par nous. Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, le temps dans n'importe quelle bataille, il est plus près qu'un ennemi qui n'importe quel démon. Tout le temps, il dit, tu perds pour lui, il faut le mort. Deux tiers de mes compagnons ont galopé, including Uthman radiallahu anhu, who became the third Khalif. And then he gets wounded, il blessé. Qui s'en là tu me fais sur l'épée pour défendre lui? And madame, Nusayba defended the life of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam avec seulement 7 ou 8 compagnons. Sa madame-là, participe dans plusieurs batailles. Il perdit un sur la main. Il coupait partout. Un des plus grands héros dans l'histoire de l'islam. Vous dire, madame-là, il parle pas capable de pas capable le terrain que le prophète pour la guerre, derrière sa muraille là-bas. Vous comprenez dire? We have to understand Islam. We have to practice Islam the way that our Prophet ﷺ taught us, the way that he practiced it. Don't make the deen harder. Combien dans le final Makkah? Vous trouvez comme madame priait au Umrah? Vous pouvez prier là, vous pouvez prier là. Okay? So you have to be careful. So I was not to get distracted here, we get back to what I'm saying. The point what I'm trying to make is this, that, when you look at Islam, when you look at Muhammad transforming people, you are heroes among women, not just among men. I just mentioned Nusayba, what Asma? Asma bint Abu Bakr, right? Abu Bakr. What was she? L'étant prophète, c'est puis aller depuis Makkah jusqu'à Medina, d'une cassette dans la cave de Thor. Qui s'en a terminé manger? Asma. Asma, asseoir, il cuit sa manger là, il prend un chemin très très risqué. And getting messages from the public. Can you please elaborate? Yes, that's a whole topic by itself. Women leadership, not today. I'd love to talk about it. That's a whole topic. But clearly Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr, cooked food, took a very risky and dangerous route dans la nuit pour aller donner manger le prophète et son papa Abu Bakr. Comment me dire où là? Alors nous, les musulmans, nous devons comprendre ce message du prophète là, ce leadership. Ok? Nous devons nous partenaires, madame nous partenaires dans sa direction là. If we just cage them, nous pouvons entrer à ta du pied. Nous pouvons hopping on one foot only. All right? So just think that, I know this is difficult to think about, but remember, the woman was in the mosque when she corrected Umar radiallahu anhu. In the mosque. She was not outside. She was not behind a parda. She was not behind a wall. She was not in another building. Okay? So, moving on. So, there are some problems with this model. Okay? By the way, I'm not talking about all of that because if I did, we would be here for about a whole day. And then, il y a trois problèmes. Dans théorie, there are several problems in transformational leadership itself. One problem with transformational, the theory itself, okay? This is where Islam goes beyond the West. So I have used the model to show you where Muhammad is, and now we go beyond that model, right? So, a couple of problems with transformational leadership. Beaucoup disaient, pour Hitler est un transformational leader. Stalin est un transformational leader. Obama dit, a leader can transform people towards the good or towards the bad. Ça, c'est le premier fois qu'il y en a avec ça. Et bien, dis moi qui invente cette théorie-là, Bass and Yamarino, they got mad because I wrote an article actually criticizing them, and other people did. I was not the only one. And then they quickly corrected the theory. They call them pseudo-transformational. Those people who take people towards the bad. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam zameni amin jimun veluma. He was very forthright about his values and did not compromise them, even, as I said, when power in time. Allah says in the Quran, that's it. He would be done. Right? The Quran did not allow him to focus on the powerful at the expense of others. So, imagine, I'm going to speak English. Imagine that you're the Prophet of Allah. No, stop that. But imagine you're in this position. There are very few Muslims at the beginning. The Muslims are getting tortured, they're getting killed. Sumaya, Yasser, others. They're beloved, being tortured. I mean, you just can just keep going on. The numbers are not there. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking to this group of chieftains. And this blind man, by the name of Ibn Maktoum, comes to him. And he wants to know about Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam frowned and looked away. Dis-moi qui avec là, des tout salés, il pas trouvé. The blind man never knew that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that. Allah, and Allah corrected his prophet right there. All right. So Ibn Maktoum, there are two verses mentioned, there are two in the Quran about him, right? Two areas. One with respect to this, a whole surah there, and the other one with respect to jihad. Ibn Maktoum wanted to go to jihad because the rewards of jihad are so high in Islam. But Allah reveals this verse exempting people like him. Do you know, some of you know, because I talked about it the other day, what happened to the Ummah? You know, because you had my speech the other day, right? This is the man, when there was a very, very big battle about to take place. Umar radiallahu anh calls any person who can fight to come. Ibn Umm shows up. He is exempted by the Quran from fighting. He shows up. And this person whom Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam might have forgotten about, right? Looked away from. They put his armor on him, they load him on his horse, and he leads the Muslim army into battle. Lui-même qui vient un pavillon, ça l'armée-là. Parce qu'il y avait. He doesn't care. There's one, there's a million, he doesn't care. Plus, he's a very strong Muslim. And he dies a shaheed. So when you look at the notion of transformational leadership, nobody was allowed to be forgotten by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not allowed. The theory can, people who are transformational leaders can engage in what we call impression management. They can try to create. We have to use heavier paper. Because these things fly around a little bit, right? So, let me afford. So, leaders of transformational can pretend, right? They can try to make themselves look more confident. They can, in a sense, in that bid, overlook people that they don't think are going to contribute anything to the long-term vision and progress of the organization. In the case of Muhammad, this never happened. And the one time when he made the mistake of overlooking the blind man, Allah corrected him. And then the lesson that happened thereafter, where that man we had overlooked became the flag bearer of the Muslim army, and in fact led them and died. A second problem.
I want to add something.
Right.
But the natural control mistake.
Right.
Allah wanted that he did this for the lesson of the Ummah. But the lesson of the Ummah that is not down lost in person, but it's not according to his own will.
I have not read that anywhere, but that's an alternate interpretation. Yeah, I that could be sure. Okay. So one is impression management. The second one is in transformational leaders, when you have people like Hitler, like Mao Zedong, like Saddam Hussein, who are also transformational but destroyed their country. When you look at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because there's often an unhealthy concentration of power and authority at the top, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as I said before, was very humble. We will see in a minute and give you examples of that. When he didn't know about something, he had not been given wahi about something, sought shura and followed shura. Thirdly, a transformational leader can force people to follow. If you look at Mao Zedong, many people don't know that. Mao Zedong killed more people than Hitler. During the Silent Revolution, 70 million Chinese were put to death or died. Stalin too was horrible, right? But Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being a transformational leader, an ethical transformational leader, never forced anybody to embrace Islam. Right? Surah 2, verse 256. What does you know, all know this surah, this ayah, right? Where Allah is saying, La ikraha fi din, qad tabayyana rushdu min al-khayr. Right? Nul contraint en religion, car le bon chemin se distingue de l'égarement. So, there are issues with theory, but not in how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a transformational leader. Because as Allah said from the beginning, you are of the highest character, and that word is tied to ethics. So we need to look at something else in complementing our picture of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is my last word before we take a break. A very famous saying. He said, "Sayyid al-qawm khadimuhum." The leader is the servant of the people. And this is where this whole idea of servant leadership goes and complements transformational leadership to give us the leadership style of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after our break, I think we're taking a break for what right now? Zaid, what are we taking a break for? Till what?
That we are going to take a break now. We are going to have for the men's folk, we'll have 2 Jamaats. The first one is at 12:30, the next one at 12:45. For the women folk, they'll be somewhere there. You know where you take them, please. So I repeat again, we'll have a break for lunch now. We'll meet for the first salat at 12:30 and the next batch at 12:45, and we'll resume here at 1 o'clock inshallah. Okay? Would make a start. We would round about quarter to two somewhere. Professor Beekun, Rafik would end his talk and he would start answering questions. But it would be helpful if in the meantime you can write up your questions. This would give us more time, even more time to answer the questions. You see? So if you can write your questions, you see, you can still wait for him to finish if you want, but by the end we'll give you 2 or 3 minutes, you write the questions and we'll collect the questions, okay? And later on, when you have been through all the questions, if there is enough time, others may want to ask the question, okay? Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, we start right now.
This, I actually wrote a journal article for it, and by the grace of Allah, it got the one of the highest award in the journal management development. So also this I presented at the Academy of Management, which is the largest professional meetings of management academies and specialists in the world. And the good thing about it is that people outside the Muslim community are beginning to recognize the fact that Islam has something to say when it comes to leadership, and it's something worthwhile. It's something that not only Muslims can apply, but they can also derive something from. So we should not, sometimes we go and we, yes, we take knowledge wherever it's found, according to the hadith, but we also can produce knowledge. We produced knowledge before, we can produce knowledge again. And that's why I was very happy when Zaid at the very beginning said something that don't stop just at the bachelor's and master's. Go all the way to PhD. Professor Kala knows me very well from my days at RCC. None of my family ever finished high school. And I was really scared when I went to university, then when I went for my master's, and even more when I went for my PhD, and whatever. The point is, remember what I said, you trust in Allah and you do your best. Trust in Allah and you do your best for the sake of Allah. Allah will make it possible, men and women, to advance in whatever field you are. Medicine, like my dear friend and long-time friend, lifelong friend, Sister Farida, and my teacher, Professor Kala, and great friends that I see around here. The Muslim community will not advance if we allow others to define us. You cannot allow others to define us. Okay? Okay, let's move on. So, what I was pointing out earlier is that when, the Prophet's model goes beyond transformational leadership, right? And the things that I'm talking about, where the Quran is saying, لَقَدْ قَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, right? So in the Quran, in the saying of Prophet ﷺ, where he said, I was not sent but to improve character. And then we look, for example, at this one, Sayyid al-Qawm khadimuhum, that the leader of the nation is their servant, right? So, in fact, Omar Kasule is a good friend of mine, and anyway, so we've worked on articles together, but Omar, in one of his, where I first heard that was a speech he gave, and I was like, it connected, because I was doing research in leadership, and servant leadership is a new theory of leadership that I will show you what it came in. But then I realized that Islam again has talked about it from the beginning. So when we look here, for example, Muhammad as a servant leader, right? So this is the definition of leadership from the guy who allegedly invented it, Robert Greenleaf, senior vice president of AT&T, a major company, and he, all of us should read the Bible because it's important for us to read it. So it's, in spite of its distortions, keeping that, it is one of the books that was revealed. So in the Bible, if you remember, there's an episode where Isa alayhi salam is washing the feet of his apostles. And what is special about that moment is that at that time, the feet were considered to be the dirtiest part of the body. So but the point that is being made there in the Bible is that it's not an attitude of what we call servility, but rather it's an attitude of servanthood. L'IPA est abaissé des mots là, mais l'IPA on dirait take care of their needs, right? And so this quote is from the book. It's a small book. You can read it in about 1 hour from Robert Greenleaf. This is one of the hottest areas of leadership right now. The idea of servant leadership, right? The servant leader is servant first. It begins with natural feeling that once one to serve first. The best test and the most difficult to administer. Do those served grow as persons? First question. That's why I separated it and I highlighted it in red. Do they, while serving, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, and more likely to become servants? And then a second one, and what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will it benefit or at least not be further deprived? So when we look at this, it is obvious that when we refer back to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized this idea of servanthood. Not only did he emphasize it, but he also lived it. So one example, of course, is, skip this right here and go straight to this one. Okay, one example is at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So if you remember the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, so they came to negotiate with the Muslims. Now, during the writing of the treaty, Muhammad ﷺ dictated these words, right? This is Muhammad, the messenger of God. And immediately the Quraysh, they go like, we don't agree with this. we don't agree that you're the Prophet of Allah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, this is where he shows his lack of ego. In this country, just think the top people. If you say one thing wrong against them, whatever party, we're not talking about, but top people now, they get upset and then they try to retaliate with you, whatever. In America, it's the same thing. With Trump, well, okay, it's like that every country. Yeah. I apologize for Trump, okay?
Thank you.
I did not vote for him. Anyway, yeah, it's, the whole world wonders. Anyway, so immediately he said, no problem. He changed from the word and ordered for the words Muhammad, son of Abdullah. So when we look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, there's a famous hadith where the Prophet said the following. This is reported by Abu Malik in Sahih Muslim. A ruler who has been entrusted with the affairs of the Muslims and makes no attempt or no endeavor to improve their material and moral well-being, so no endeavor for their material and moral uplift, and is not sincerely concerned for their welfare, will not enter paradise. Remember that other hadith I cited before, where the Prophet ﷺ speaking to Abu Zar, and it says, Abu Zar, you are weak, and authority is an amana, and we don't give it to just anybody who asked it. There's another version of the hadith that continues, and in that hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, and on the day of judgment, you'll be like a piece of charcoal. Whoever is a leader, that on fire that you're holding on your hands. So you have to be very careful when you ask for positions of leadership, especially if you're going to if somebody is going to misuse it and not take care of the mandate for which he was chosen, not take care of the people by whom he was elected, he or she was elected. That makes sense. So this idea is very important. This idea of psychological side. So one area of leadership that is coming back is the area of charismatic leadership. We know that leadership, some people are born leaders, some people like me, very charismatic. We can train you to become a better leader, inshallah. But one of the things that happens is, what we know is that if a person occupies an important office, by virtue of that office, they have what we call office charisma. So, one example, Kasamute, good friend of mine, good friend of many of you. Before he became president, after he became president. The very fact that he was president of Mauritius gave him what we call position charisma, office charisma. Muhammad ﷺ never used his status as prophet of Allah to put down people, to crush people. And how do we know that? Well, he said, for example, I am Allah's servant. Musir Allah. I eat like a servant. And I sit like a servant. And this is reported by Anas. Right? So, when we look at Muhammad ﷺ, even when he was in charge of, he was the head of the Islamic State. If somebody, can you name it? Well, Kiki says, what's the first thing you ask? What are you cooking? Right? What are you cooking? You make it, right? Biryani ou pas? Si biryani mau beef, babini ou babini, right? Ou probablement chikari là, non, pas les chikari. No? Okay? Et vous dites qu'il a bien aussi, vous mangez, right? You're going to tell him what you want to eat. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not refuse an invitation to dinner. Even when he knew that what he was being served was barley bread and bien coarse, and bien pas très bon, et un soupe. Vous connaissez quand on mange une assiette de 3 jours sur l'odeur sans it, right? And soup whose taste, so l'odeur, so goût sans it, has changed. He never refused an invitation. si nous, elle dit, nous, venez, vous avez du pain, moi, vous devez prendre la soupe là, avec du pain rassis là, au poêlet. Non, ou tout ça, les styles pour parler. Mais Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, exactement l'opposé. Exactement l'opposé. All right? C'est ça l'humilité, c'est ça, that's why he truly behaved like a servant of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never, as I said, humiliated anybody. One example, and he, as a good Samaritan, Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa reported that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never disdained if si un veuve Tingelli pour demander aide-moi, never disdained to go with a widow to accomplish her task, to help her. He used to. Now, this woman homme, si madame Théo prend sa tia ça t'es là, mais dis dans ce vidéo là. Combien d'entre nous this is not my work, right? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to tidy the house. He used to clean his house, tether the camels, attach un chameau, feed the animals, take food. Il mange avec ce ban serviteur. Il assise avec eux, il mange. Right? He would also, pas faire, mais ça la farine là, faire du pain, lié Aisha radiallahu anha, Madame fait ça, and he al bazar, he bring provisions from the market. Jabir said, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was walking, always walked with purpose. Not, we walk like slowly looking here. He walked with purpose. But if somebody slower was walking with him, he would always slow down to match the speed of the person, or the pace of the person walking. You understand that? And when somebody was speaking to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dis-moi que avec lui l'iPhone là, que moi avec mon Facebook, quand il côté là, yeah. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when somebody talked to him, he would turn and face the person. He would never do anything else but focus his whole attention on that person. And qualité de comportement and a way of behaving, humbly, a way of behaving that, and when people came to visit him, he would sit on the floor and offer them to sit on the little whatever that he was sitting on. We could keep going on. And Umar radiallahu anhu came to visit him. There, in si domino nat. Et la man chose là. Vous connaissez le domino nat, il fait comme ça, dans le dos, right? Man trace là. De là où Umar quitte sa vie et commence à pleurer. Mais le prophète, pas si domino dans le pilot. Comment vous dire? So c'est ça, when we look at Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this next hadith is an important one. It complements the many ways that one can do it. Both you and me. Because I'm teaching myself in many ways. There are many doors to goodness. This hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reported in Fiqh Sunnah volume 3, saying glory to God, praise to God, there's no deity but God, enjoining good, forbidding evil, removing harm from the road, listening to the deaf until you understand that. Moi, I wear hearing aids, and I totally appreciate it when people raise their voice so that they can hear. And you don't know how helpless somebody who cannot hear and cannot afford hearing aids is until you have experienced the lack of sound. The lack of sound. Right? So leading the blind, guiding one to the object of one's need, hurrying the strength of one's leg to one in sorrow who's asking for help, supporting the weak with the strength of one's arms. All of these are forms of charity prescribed for all of us. Right? what are the many ways that we can serve humanity, Muslims and non-Muslims. That's why I gave that talk yesterday, Muslims and non-Muslims, right? And in this famous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, all of you are guardians and are responsible for your flock. You're supposed to serve. So I'll ask a question. I'm looking at time right now. The professor has given me a strict time limit. Ça veut dire ça, guardian. How would you have guardian? And l'autre hadith comme ça, where the Prophet ﷺ said, all of you are shepherds. What does that mean? All of you are shepherds and are responsible for your flock. Ça veut dire, shepherd c'est quoi en berger. Ça veut dire ça quoi un berger? Raise your hand and just say, you're in charge of the flock. What else?
That your sheep.
One person at a time. What? Yeah? You're the leader of the flock. Where does the shepherd lead the flock? From in front, from behind? Merci. From behind. Why from behind? Il tourne sur les dos, pas qu'on est comme il a bien les dents. Vous comprenez ce que je veux dire? What else? Why would the Prophet ﷺ use the word berger? Chacun d'entre vous est un berger et responsable pour son troupeau. Don't make French too difficult.
Caring also.
Essential?
Caring.
Caring, right? You take care of it.
Responsible for their mistake.
Responsibility, very good. So now we're getting there. They're responsible for their mistake, right? What else?
Guiding and correcting.
Guiding and correcting. So you can see the hadith is very deep. And by the way, he didn't say all of you males in the hadith. All right? Because he defined the other hadith where he said men, and then he says women. And the woman is responsible for a house, and then he continues with it. So when we talk about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this hadith supports it quite a bit. So we are talking about the various attributes of servant leadership. So let me go back so you know what I'm talking about. So we said right here. So we talk about service before self, facilitating others' needs that I just mentioned, and some of the others. So that's the idea, and I'm covering how Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a servant leader. So we talk about servant leader's principles. I didn't talk about that. I skipped that. We talk about service before self, right? Comment il fait ça? Tout le temps, he was always in the service of others. Secondly, he facilitated the needs of others. Thirdly, he basically this idea of taking responsibility, and then promoting emotional healing in people and organizations. So this hadith, this verse in the Quran was revealed right after Uhud. So if you remember Uhud, we talked about it earlier. This was the closest that the Muslims came to defeat. And the one who almost defeated the Prophet ﷺ, but of course Allah is the one who knows and decides everything, was Khalid ibn Walid, right? So in this particular verse, revealed to the Prophet after Uhud. Because remember the Muslims, as I said, ran away. The Prophet was wounded, he lost, right? And was bleeding and everything. So, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Allah is talking to him. Because he could have been very angry with his companions. They did not listen to him. He posted them on top of the hills, the archers especially, to cover the rear, right? And then the others fled when he was calling them back. And Allah is talking to him. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It is part of the mercy of Allah that you do deal genuinely. In Islam, failure is a learning opportunity. You don't always succeed, right? You don't. You're praying, and 90% of prayer you think Manchester, Liverpool, Manchester City, right? Are you thinking of the prayer? So you're trying. Get your mind, get your soul back. Because when you're praying, the more you allow yourself to get distracted, the value of your prayers go down. So it's this idea of mujahada, constant self-improvement, right? So the Prophet, Allah is telling him, be lenient. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. Okay? This is an important, right? Were you severe or harsh-hearted, they would have broken with you. There's so few of us. How many Muslims are there in this country? Numbers?
200,000.
200,000. Think how many of them come to Jummah. Think how many of them go to Salatul Fajr. You go to Salatul Fajr and sanctum the masjid. La plupart, même dans l'Arabie Saoudite, les Tamassi là-bas, ou le Masjid Fajr, vous savez, des trois du monde, un petit masjid quand je me suis allé dans Riyadh. What happens to everybody? Okay? There are few of us, so you can't chase people away when they make mistakes. Right? So pass over their faults and ask Allah's forgiveness for them. And remember, this is critical, this part of the verse, right here. It was Shura, right, that led them outside. But Allah re-emphasizes the concept of Shura in this verse after their near defeat. That's why Shura is so important in Islam, right? Where he's saying, astaghfirullah so he's talking about trusting in Allah. But the idea here is Allah is saying, don't consult with the affairs. And then this idea that when you have done shura, he's saying, فَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. The notion of tawakkul, right there. Okay? So you do shura, and then after you made a decision, one problem we have, I don't know about in Mauritius, but certainly in America, like when you shura in the masjid or in big organizations, then people go home and start calling their friends. I think they're wrong. If you come with me, we'll overturn the board. Monsieur Van Gris, madame, il n'ose pas faire ça, non? Donne faire ça, toi? Non, ne pas faire ça. Pas capable. Pas un ange ici. So, when you have taken this, just put your trust in Allah, for Allah loves those who put their trust in Him. So, means are important as ends. Make things, remember what I was saying before? Many places the Prophet ﷺ said, don't make this deen difficult. Allah does not expect you to be Wonder Woman or Superman. Right? Don't, right? Muhammad practiced incrementalism or gradualism. Aisha radiallahu anha had a hadith where he said when the Prophet ﷺ saw that there are two ways of doing something, he would always take the easiest. Okay? So one good example of that is Prophet ﷺ, in the great battle of Badr al-Muhtar, if you remember, the Muslims were in great trouble. They were in great trouble. There were over 100,000 non-Muslims against a very small number of Muslims. I have the number here. So 3,000 Muslims against 100,000 Muslims. So what happened is the three leaders that Muhammad ﷺ had appointed basically got killed. And then Khalid ibn Walid took over. And Khalid, probably the greatest general that the Muslims have ever had. The Khalid is looking at this and saying, it's going to be very difficult for us to win. So he basically waited, and then he pulled back the army. And the non-believers also did the same thing. When they came back, they were mocked by the other Muslims. They were called, "Oh, you deserters." The Prophet ﷺ said, "No, they're not deserters. Inshallah, they are advancers. And maybe next time, inshallah, you will win." And in fact, he said, "You didn't flee." I'm quoting right now. You retreated to join me. You will collect strength and fight with them again as Byzantines. You know, the reason I'm saying that is because you have people who force others. Clearly they need something else. The stories about Saddam Hussein and others, that they couldn't. If the soldiers retreats in the American army too, they would kill them right there. The British army was famous for it. Muhammad said, "No, what you did was smart." And so he's not using people as a means. The people are important in themselves. And in fact, in the next battle, at the Battle of Yarmouk, the Muslims won that battle. And that battle was a brutal battle. It was against basically the Roman Empire. Right? They brought everything, the Byzantine Romans. Okay, so when we look at Muhammad ﷺ, how does one become, based on what we have taught so far, this idea of transformational leadership? So Muhammad ﷺ, model of leadership is character-based. It's based on ethics, and he was a transformational leader, but he didn't commit the sins that many transformational leaders made, because he was an ethical transformational leader who focused on serving the people that were around him and basically the Ummah. That was Muhammad. That's the overall picture. There's more in the paper that I wrote, because that one is written for an academic audience. But what are some principles we can walk away from? There are several principles, right? The first one is challenge the status quo. Muhammad ﷺ, he did not accept, and Allah guided him there, the fact that you had a civilization at that time that in fact was premised on ignorance and doing all kinds of things that were contrary to the message that had been delivered to them, or certainly to the Jews that were not far away, and to the Christians. He did not, so this era of Jahiliyyah, he stood against it. Secondly, we talk about how Muhammad ﷺ was inspired by Allah without the vision. Muhammad ﷺ, that was Allah inspiring him. You and I were just regular people. In any organization that you work, you must have a destination. 10 years from now, where is human welfare going to be? Where's IIET going to be? Where is Islamic Cultural College going to be? Where are you going to be? One of my best friends, certainly the friend of my my wife, a very famous Muslim convert by the name of Amina Asilmi. You can look on YouTube and you'll find many of her talks. Amina Asilmi was a high fashion model before she converted to Islam. And Amina Asilmi, what?
What is that?
Aminah, Assilmi. Assilmi.